Ooh, hi everyone. Slick the Knee Rick Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Of Montreal record, Innocence Reaches. This is the 1 trillionth record from Atlanta indie veterans of Montreal, now in the third act of their career, but they seem no less prolific now than they were in the early days. Although I will say, recently the band has hit choppy waters on a couple of occasions, most notably on their previous record, Aureate Gloom, which was easily one of Montreal's most inconsistent and confusing albums yet. And with this new record over here, it sounds like the band has not really worked their way out of the woods yet. Innocence Reaches is yet another unfocused Of Montreal album that has no real sense of direction to it, which seems to be happening more and more now that the band has a sizable and varied discography behind them. At the drop of a hat, they could whip out some kind of crazy, psychedelic, electronic, glam pop mishmash, but then they could also do some psych rock, some hard rock, but with a bit of a bubblegum flavor to it, some acoustic jams as well. The band could forge ahead and continue trying new things, but instead they just seem to content, at least on this record, to sort of trip back and lily hop from one sound to the next that they've already toyed with, and then just assemble whatever happens into a series of tracks that they called an album. The track list on this thing is a mix of glam rock, some 60s psychedelic rock and pop music, as well as the zany electronic pop madness that you may remember from records like Hissing Fauna. And the synthetic cuts on here are more gaudy and obnoxious than ever. Maybe not so tiring and taxing as they were on False Priest, easily one of my least favorite Of Montreal records, but pretty damn close. Especially as the album seems to kick off with these driving kick drums and these MGMT style synth leads that are just really glossy, glistening. And the lyrics on this track sound like the band is dipping their toes into the world of Tumblr politics, although they do come through with a really cool message of unity on the chorus. And I guess this is a bit of a disappointment for me, because back in the day when Of Montreal and MGMT were both at their creative peaks, a lot would say, Of Montreal was writing electronic pop music that was a cut above what bands like MGMT and bands that were ripping off MGMT were doing. And now it's almost as if they're going back to revisit a sound that they had already bested years ago. There's also the very chill and funky "It's Different for Girls," which has some pretty thoughtful lyrics about the politics of sex and gender. I liked it when it first came out, although the more I listen to it, the more cringy I find some of the lyrics to be, especially those moments where it seems like Kevin Barnes is uselessly white knighting over things like girls not peeing on the toilet seat. Really? Then there are other statements on the track that I feel like could have been legitimate, but Kevin Barnes kind of couches them in irony, like he does on a lot of his lyrics. The song A Sport and a Pastime, another one of the more electronic cuts in the track listing here. A track that, in my opinion, has one of the weaker instrumentals, has one of the worst vocal melodies on the entire project, Above, Above. But the song does seem to feature these rattling hi-hats. It's like trap music. You can't get away from it anywhere. Even on a Montreal record, it seems to have at least a smidge of influence. The song Ambassador Bridge is equally drab and lifeless, as Kevin Barnes is singing, really moaning again and again, "Sarah, come down." I don't really get the appeal of these sort of redundant instrumentals and very unenthused vocal performances that Kevin Barnes is delivering on this record. And the track doesn't exactly light up when a disco-flavored instrumental pops in to separate these very taxing verses out. Now, I will say there are some great highlights on this record, though. The song Gratuitous Abysses is a really kind of fun, fuzzy, hard rock track that sounds like the Stooges performing a sold-out show at Candyland. And the song My Fair Lady, Kevin Barnes is singing about a self-destructive girl, so self-destructive he has to give his love to some other girl. Sounds like a bit of a dick move, but in the lyrics he makes the case for just how toxic this person is, that he needs to separate her from his life. And on the song Death Pacts, he seems to be describing either the same person or a very similar person, somebody who also has very self-destructive behaviors, which which Kevin Barnes just really rips into on this project. And I found this sort of surprising because a lot of the behaviors here that Kevin is singing about so negatively, he has sung about doing or exhibiting himself on his past records. Although he does have a moment of self-awareness on this track where he says, I've just gotten over a lot of these problems myself. And the track Chaos Arpeggiating, easily my favorite track in the track listing here. I think also one of the best songs of Montreal have written and recorded this decade. To me, this track, Kevin Barnes makes the case for glam in 2016. Awesomely refined instrumental on this track, and I would say exciting ascending instrumentation on the chorus, amazing chord progression, and when Kevin Barnes sings that chaos arpeggiating, it's just like this great emotional release. The song is not only incredibly beautiful, but very cathartic as well. The dramatic drum fills, the buzzing wall of instrumentation, it's a beautiful moment on the record. While this album does have a lot of sort of unpredictable twists and turns, it's unpredictable in exactly the way that works against it more than for it. It's just Kevin Barnes and company just really refusing to settle on anything. And because nothing is really committed to, there are a lot of tracks on this record that just sound super lackluster. Fans who are well aware of their pre-Hissing Fauna and pre-Satanic Panic in the Attic output will certainly find a few bones thrown to them on here that sound really great. But again, a majority of this record kind of drab, uninteresting electronic tracks with flat vocal performances or cuts that are super, I don't know, obnoxious and taxing and sort of glitchy and gaudy. I don't really know what else to say. You know, there are plenty of tracks on here that I like. There are plenty of tracks in here that I don't. I'm just kind of split between all of them, and the album as a whole, I just generally feel indifferent toward it. I'm feeling a strong 4.285 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry if you happen to disagree with my thoughts on this record. Thanks for watching. Forever.